Kanye West, he would be facing sex trafficking charges if it was anywhere else.
Gene Deal has ignited a storm of controversy after naming 5 major celebrities he claims are connected to Diddy, including Kanye West, Jay-Z, and Usher. The allegations are so explosive that many are now asking a critical question. Why were these names reportedly removed from the documentary by 50 Cent? In this breakdown, we'll examine each celebrity and their alleged ties to Diddy one by one. The first name Gene Deal highlighted in his latest interview was Usher. He pointed to past statements where Usher revealed he was exposed to situations at a very young age that he should never have been around. According to Gene, that revelation alone speaks volumes and may hint at a much deeper story beneath the surface.
A lot of celebrities that saw it. It's probably a lot of stuff. Look at Usher. What Usher say? I seen some things I shouldn't have been seeing at that age. What does that tell you? That he's seen some things, he was around some things when he was young that he shouldn't have been at a Diddy party. So that's going to show you that there's certain things that are happening that's going on that here it is, this kid was saying he shouldn't even seen it and been around him.
The implication is hard to ignore. Usher was reportedly exposed to environments and situations that were deeply inappropriate for someone his age, especially at that stage of his life. But Gene Deal didn't stop there. He went on to make an even more shocking claim about Usher's time around Sean Diddy Combs. According to Deal, there was an incident involving the two that allegedly escalated to the point where Usher had to be taken to the hospital. If true, it raises serious questions and suggests there may be far more to this story than what has ever been publicly revealed.
A certain feeling, and I felt a certain way when Usher got on Shay Shay, and I don't mean to mention other people's platforms, but he got on Shay Shay and he mentioned how great and how good Puff taught him and everything. You know what I'm saying? About the business, right? I know, and people know, that was around that in that time that Puff and Usher did have a situation. And that situation led Usher to the hospital. Now I let Usher explain that to y'all. I let Usher tell that story. But how dare you say a man that groomed you, you gonna give him a pass? Bro, you know I know.
Gene Deal claims that Usher has subtly alluded to these experiences in the past, though he's never revealed the full story in detail. And that's where things take a more complicated turn. Deal questions why Usher would later go on to defend, or even publicly praise, Sean Diddy Combs, despite allegedly facing troubling experiences during his younger years. It's a contradiction that raises serious questions, and suggests there may be far more beneath the surface than what's ever been openly discussed.
Let me reframe you on something. Remember Usher? We was at the Swiss Hotel. Puff had Kim in the room. Had one of Keith Sweat's baby mothers in the big room outside the master bedroom. He came outside in his robe. She gave him a fellatio right there. His back was turned to me. She gave him a fellatio. You knocked on the door. I came and opened the door for you. Puff went in the room. You came in the room and kissed that girl dead in her mouth. Now I'm telling that because you taking up for somebody that you know and a lot of more people know didn't do you right when you was at Diddy camp.
Gene Deal then pointed to a specific memory from that time, one that explains why this issue still matters deeply to him today. He claimed he personally witnessed behavior that made it unmistakably clear the environment surrounding Sean Diddy Combs was not appropriate, especially for young, impressionable artists who were still trying to find their place in the industry. But according to Deal, What makes this even more disturbing is what he says was left out. He alleges that one of the most significant moments censored from the documentary involved an incident between Diddy and Usher, an event so severe, he claims, that it ultimately resulted in Usher being hospitalized. If accurate, it's not just a missing detail.
I heard about some music executive from the industry back in Harlem. You know, I heard it from some music executives back in Harlem. And I'm not going to speak on their name. They doing programs and everything like that, and they may be doing some programs. They may speak on it themselves. But I heard it from some music executives.
Where did you hear?
Bro, you know how people be talking, and we was around some people, something like that, and then some people might say, "Yo, I don't F with that dude." And at the time, I didn't even know who the F Usher was. You know what I'm saying? It was one of those type of situations. And when somebody say, "Yo, man, I don't F with them niggas, man, I'm getting out that industry and everything like that." You know, Puff sent this little kid to the hospital. How he sent him to the hospital? Man, nigga was bleeding from the butt. And that's what was said. But I didn't even have a name for the kid at the time. Then you heard.
Gene Deal says this points to a much larger issue, that certain things were happening behind the scenes, and some people in the industry may have been aware, but staying silent was simply the norm. He then shifted focus to what he claims to have personally witnessed involving Sean Diddy Combs and Jamie Foxx, emphasizing that he would only speak on what he saw with his own eyes. Deal recalled first meeting Foxx on a tour bus during a trip he barely remembers today. At the time, the atmosphere felt casual, nothing that suggested any kind of close connection. But according to him, that perception changed over time. He now claims that, looking back, he came to believe that Diddy and Jamie Foxx were involved in behavior he describes as deeply disturbing, particularly in how women were treated. If true, it adds another troubling layer to a story that continues to raise serious questions.
It was on some friendship stuff, and it was a tour bus, and Puff was in the back, and there was a lot of girls in the front, and Jamie was just real touchy-feely, but Puff didn't come out the back. I don't know if Puff came out the back of the tour bus. You understand? And Jamie went back there for a minute or so, then he just came out, and he was all touchy-feely with the girls, and I'm looking at this dude like, wow, this dude kind of like touchy-feely with these girls, and he don't even know them. They know him because he's Jamie Foxx, but he didn't know them. So I don't really know their real relationship or how close they was. I didn't meet Jamie Foxx and really have a conversation with him until I...
What makes this even more unsettling, according to Gene Deal, is the long-standing connection between Jamie Foxx and Sean Diddy Combs. Deal points out that Foxx has, at times, openly joked about partying with Diddy, and even made lighthearted remarks about teaching him how to party on a budget. But in hindsight, those comments are now being viewed through a very different lens. Suddenly, what once sounded like humor raises deeper, more uncomfortable questions. Why would federal authorities ever be around Diddy? And could there have been more going on behind the scenes than anyone realized at the time? These are the kinds of questions people are now starting to ask. Then, Deal shifts to another name he claims was quietly removed from the documentary, Ja Rule. According to him, their story traces back to a moment in Atlanta. Deal recalls going into a specialty store with Diddy while they were on the road, an experience that stood out immediately. It was the first time he had ever seen Diddy in a place like that, and what struck him the most was just how comfortable Diddy seemed.
I ever went to an exotic bookstore, with Puff. I didn't know he even did that, but we was in Atlanta. So when we went through the door, they gave him a brown paper bag. So I guess this is a place that he was used to and people knew him there. So when they gave him a brown paper bag, Puff was just going around the store, just picking items off the shelves and stuff like that, putting them in a brown paper bag. So then, I was behind him and no Diddy, but I was about 3 feet behind him, as he was putting stuff and putting it in his bag and stuff like that. So there's one particular place that he was put up there, he had to reach up kind of high and get it. So he just started pulling things out. And he was pulling a lot of them off there. So I was like, so I looked up and the thing said,
butt plugs. When he walking down the things with butt plugs. I say, hey yo, just to mess with him. I say, hey yo, what are you getting these for? And he said, can I do my shopping by myself? I said, yes, you can. And I waited up at the register for him, you know, because they had the big counter up there. So when he came to the counter, I said, yo, I'm finna see what this motherfucker this mofo is putting in his bag, because I know he gonna have to take everything and put it on the counter so the dude could count it, right? My man, when he came there, he gave the dude a wad of hundreds like this. You know what I'm saying? He gave him a wad of hundred and just put it up there. The dude ain't even, you know what I'm saying? He ain't even want to know.
After that, they boarded a private jet and headed to North Carolina for a show, with Ja Rule traveling alongside them. But according to Gene Deal, the real tension unfolded mid-flight. He claims that Sean Diddy Combs repeatedly pressured Ja Rule to go after Jay-Z musically, pushing for a confrontation that could have escalated into something much bigger. It wasn't just casual conversation. It felt deliberate, a moment that, in hindsight, may have been about far more than music.
They went to the room. I don't know what they were doing in there. I didn't give a shit. But Puff told me, Gene, do not let nobody. You don't want to be up in that room because there was a whole lot of freaky shit going on.
Was he trying to spark a war with Jay-Z? It's a question that lingers, and one that only deepens a mystery. When they finally arrived at the hotel, the atmosphere seemed relaxed at first. They were staying in a large suite, filled with people eating, talking, and casually socializing. On the surface, everything looked normal, but that didn't last. According to Gene Deal, things took a sudden turn when Sean Diddy Combs, Ja Rule, and a few women stepped into a separate room together. And just before the door closed, Diddy gave one very specific instruction: don't let anyone else in. In that moment, the tone shifted completely, and what followed remains one of the most questioned parts of the story.
Jay-Z and Puff was given
Gene Deal also claimed that Sean Diddy Combs had a pattern, allegedly placing people in compromising situations to influence their decisions and shape their actions. According to Deal, that night was no different. He believes Diddy was deliberately trying to steer Ja Rule in a specific direction, one that could impact his career in a major way. Whether Ja Rule will ever speak publicly about what allegedly happened remains an open question. Then, Deal shifts to another major name, Jay-Z. He explains why he believes Jay-Z and Diddy were far closer than they've publicly admitted. But in his view, it wasn't about friendship. It was about business. Deal claims their connection was strategic, that both were working toward the same goal. And according to him, that goal was controlling the direction of East Coast hip-hop, shaping who rises, who falls, and what voices are heard. If true, it suggests a level of influence that goes far beyond music and into the power dynamics behind the industry itself.
So they was back on the...
So everything circled back to the East Coast. According to Gene Deal, this is where the deeper industry problem begins to surface. He believes record labels were facing a difficult reality. Why continue paying massive advances to New York artists when Southern artists were producing platinum hits on far smaller budgets? Instead of adjusting the system, Deal claims the industry took a different route. He alleges that New York artists were quietly sidelined, and in his view, that shift had real consequences. He points to 50 Cent as a prime example, someone who struggled early on due to label politics, industry pressure, and damaging rumors. According to Deal, it became so difficult that 50 Cent had no choice but to leave New York in order to find a real opportunity. That move ultimately led him to align with powerful figures outside the East Coast, changing the trajectory of his career forever.
It's enough. Nobody called me Sean but Jay-Z. Now, I don't know what kind of statement, and I can't say, I wish I could say half a homo, but I know I can't say it. But I don't know what kind of half a homo that is. And you trying to say that you're not close to somebody. You coming on stage, patting them on their ass, and then you making a broad statement to the public, can't nobody call me Sean but Sean Carter. And I heard Jay-Z said the same thing about...
According to Gene Deal, East Coast rap was always destined to make a comeback, no matter what the industry tried to do. But he believes there was one artist positioned to lead that revival on a massive scale. Someone who, in his view, had the potential to do for a new generation what the notorious G once did for an entire era. That artist was Pop Smoke. Deal suggests that Pop Smoke represented more than just a rising star. He symbolized a return of East Coast dominance in hip-hop. And according to him, that momentum was building faster than most people realized. In Tyro 12, Gene Deal ended by suggesting that the industry has never truly allowed East Coast rap to fully return to its former dominance. And in his view, every time it gets close, something always seems to disrupt it. He admits it's not hard evidence, but rather a pattern he's observed over the years. From his perspective, Jay-Z and Sean Diddy Combs were far closer than many people now want to acknowledge, regardless of legal statements or public narratives. He also claims their relationship extended beyond business, describing a level of familiarity where jokes about personal lives and private conversations blur the line between professional and personal. Deal argues that many powerful figures in the industry operate inside a kind of bubble, creating chaos, influencing narratives, and then moving on without consequence, as if detached from the real-world impact. But he warns that mindset doesn't last forever. And then he turns to perhaps the most explosive name in the conversation, Kanye West. According to Deal, before Diddy's legal troubles escalated, Kanye was openly criticizing him in interviews and calling him out directly. Yet more recently, Kanye has been seen back in Diddy's orbit, even wearing items interpreted by some as signs of public support. Deal suggests this kind of sudden shift is common in the industry, where alliances change quickly depending on advantage, pressure, or survival. He even raises a question. Is Kanye simply adapting, or is he worried about becoming the next target? Then Deal references a separate account involving a trip to Las Vegas, where, according to claims attributed to someone close to the situation, Kanye and his wife attended shows and events as part of the outing. And just like that, the story only becomes more layered and far more complicated.
But they were so close that I expect him to remember, but I remembered. You understand? And he told Puff, he said, yo, Puff, yo, I heard about that Gene right there. That Gene got a mean left. Oh, he said, that Gene a knock a out. Then he gonna come up to me and say, man, you look like, man, you a tear ass up. And I said to himself, I said, yo, no Diddy. Pause, whatever. I said, he don't even remember. I was about to knock him the F out. He didn't even remember. He said to me to Laura. That's how these guys are, man.